This is all the latest news and gossip.
Chico requests to be on my live, and he's talking down, and he ends up really keeping it a buck. Hi, Chico.
What's up, Amanda? How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I see you on here
That's
talking
so
that good
great.
shit.
You said what?
I see you on here talking that good shit. I was just telling somebody, man, people like to use Martin Luther King like he wasn't out getting bricks thrown at his head and he was in the middle of a grill battle. And they try to make it seem like nonviolence means to just let somebody brutalize you. That's not what his message was at all. Not even in the slightest. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous, man.
What's going on under your hat?
Oh, shit.
The deacon. That's why you feel so close to Maya right now.
Right.
Coming through you.
I feel like I work for the NAACP with this shit going on.
I love you so much.
Man, I just was watching that clip where you were going off about this, the white people that feel like they have a obligation to tell you how you supposed to move. It's ridiculous. I'll tell you a story. I was out in California shooting. We were doing like they were trying to bring back Celebrity Deathmatch, and I was writing on it. And they had I was staying at this Four Seasons that was real nice, and they had these bikes you can rent. So I rented the bike, and I was riding around in the little shopping center, and this white lady pulled up on me and was like, "What are you doing?" Like, "What do you mean, what am I doing?" She was like, "You've been riding around here for 10 minutes. What are you doing?" I'm like, "Bitch, if you'd have been minding your business, you wouldn't be worried about what I was doing." So I think a lot of us have dealt with that type of white person,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That feel like, and I think it's just the power structure that this country is set up, because I think that we all know that white people have an ability to be able to feel like no matter what position they are in life, as long as their skin is not the hue of yours, they are doing better than you. And it's ridiculous, man.
And there's a sense of protection. Like they all feel like they have to protect wherever they are from you. It's an underlying sense of you don't belong here, so therefore you have to be questioned. Like I remember I was in DC, and my hotel, like the entrance was like on the other side from where I was, and me and my dude were like sitting on the river eating lunch, and it was like we could walk around this whole block, or so basically it was like the kind of hotel where like you could walk all the way around to get to an entrance that we can see from where we're standing.
Right.
So it was like, or we could just hop over this fence and scale this short little wall and go there.
Mm-hmm.
He's a full nigga. So of course he was like, well, let's do that. So we do this, and there's a white, like the little wall that we walk across separates like a apartment complex from the hotel. And this white lady is like, oh my God, mind you, there's nowhere for us to break into. Like it's an apartment complex and a hotel. Oh my God, what are you doing? And we're like walking across the wall like nothing. I'm literally holding the key in my hotel key in my hand. I was like, we're staying in the hotel. She's like, no, you're not. I'm calling 911. I'm calling 911. I'm like, these motherfuckers. By the time you call 911, bitch, I'm in my goddamn room.
I'm in my room, right? Exactly. And that clip of the lady in Central Park, people were wondering why she was doing the dog that way. And my theory is she was doing the dog that way because if the police came, the nigga would have been blamed for the injuries of the dog too. Like whatever was wrong with the dog, they'd have said the nigga did it to the dog. She was choking the poor dog out, and the nigga would have been blamed for the dog's injuries and everything else. It's sick out here, man. And it's like, I just don't understand how, and I thank you for being a black woman that ride, because, that's always been something. People look back on the history of the struggle that we've been going through in this country. Y'all have always been on the front line and always have been, the ones that have had our backs through situations where, most people just let us just wither off into the, into the sunset, and y'all always have stood behind us. And I just always thank you for not giving a fuck about what you might lose or what endorsements you might not get from speaking your mind, man. I just know it's appreciated. It's always appreciated. I love you for that.
Thank you, Chico.
Yeah, I love you for that, because a lot of these motherfuckers act like they don't see what's going on. And it's rough for us because I just was having a conversation the other night, and it was like, you never really make it if you're a black man in America. Like, I've been blessed to come from, you know, my father got murdered when I was 2 years old. I was in the streets, all that good stuff that people glorify, and I was able to make it out of that. But it doesn't matter, because I can pull out of my house that I live in this nice neighborhood and get pulled over and get shot just for looking like I'm not supposed to be somewhere that they deem me not worthy of being. So you never really make it here, and that's the worst part.
I mean, I've been talking to a couple of folks, you know, who are just like, you know, it's just feeling like it's time to go, you know, and that if they could exit, would they, you know? And
That's crazy though, but let me ask you this. The most fucked up part about that is there's no place in the world where black people is good. Like, there's no place that we can pinpoint and say, all right, if we can just get here, then shit'll be great. Like, it's literally nowhere in the world for us to feel like there's an escape. All these other races that come here and achieve the American dream, they have a home. You know what I mean? They have somewhere that they can call home and they can go back to. There is no place that we can go back to that is safe for us. Nowhere in the world. And so it's like we try to make the best of wherever we are, but it's like, even if we were to leave, where the fuck are we going? You know what I'm saying? It's crazy.
I mean, I think, and this is something we've been talking about tonight, but I mean, this can seem very kind of defeatist, but it's not meant to be. I just think that for what it's worth, like, we are a young people.
Very
like
much so.
Black Americans as a people, we are young in the grand scheme of the world. And as a tribe, like, we're in the very early stages of our existence and defining what that is. And, you know, our history is literally, at this point, the crux of our history is from what we were made from other people. So we're
Right.
only now, like, at this point where I feel like there's a certain level of consciousness where we're starting to, in better ways, define our own history. I mean, you know, we just weren't able to, and we had to find ways. My mother started writing and trying to, you know, like, because there's the human condition that says my story needs to be heard, my story needs to be heard, I need to be free. But when we talk about, like, where would we go? I mean, I really fantasize about, like, so the aliens are just not gonna show up at all.
I know, right? I know, right? I see a lot of people. I see my man Ali Sadiq. He put Ghana in there, and that's beautiful what they did with the return, you know, and people able to actually buy land that they own there, and that's great. But I'm talking about somewhere where you have a lineage that you can trace. We have nowhere in the world that we have a lineage that we can directly trace and say, all right, if I go here, I'm going to be accepted no matter what. They have to accept me because they know that I am a product of this place. I don't think that place exists. But at the same time, I don't fuck that. We shouldn't have to go nowhere. We have just as much stake here as anybody else. You know what I mean? We built this country. It's a book that I was blessed with called The New Negro. And it was written by Alan Locke.
Yep.
I don't know if you're familiar
I
with
was
it, but
talking about this earlier conversation, because there were
oh,
old
okay. See,
because the
right,
old
and that's
Negroes
crazy
tried
now.
to say chill, 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 and Elaine Locke and Langston and the crew was like, fuck that, we about to turn up.
Right, but the thing is, when I got to read it, it's, you know, it's 2020 hindsight now, because we can kind of see what worked and what didn't work. But the problems that they were dealing with was so elevated then, because they were they were literally a generation removed from slavery. So being intellectual and knowing how to read and being able to do things that now are just, you know, kind of cliche for us, they were really fighting to have those things come true at that time. And when I read the book, it's like, I live in North Carolina. And Durham was the epicenter of Black excellence back then. Like, all of the kids that went to Howard at the time were striving to be these Black businessmen who are in Durham, who still have buildings and schools named after them right now that you never taught about in schools. I didn't hear about any of these guys until I read this book, and I live in North Carolina. So it's just it's a strategic way that we've been separated from the greatness that we produce and the magic that we have, that I feel like we need to get back to, because if we don't, then we just gonna continue to be stuck in the whatever they give us as far as our worth to the world, and it's bullshit.
I guess what I was saying when I was saying about like we're young people is that we don't realize that we're living for a future right now. Like what we're doing right now, what we are building, what we are theorizing, I feel like is really not for us. We're not going to get to live that utopia that we envision, where what you're talking about when you say like a place where we can go that's ours. We are the ones that are creating the place that will be theirs. When I say theirs, I mean our descendants. That's what we're building right now. We don't look at it that way, because we look at it like, nah, I want to live this shit now, and everyone is every man for themselves. We don't look at it if like we are a tribe. We look at it as if we are every man for themselves, and we got to try and make the best of this shit in any way, shape, or form. If it means I got to kill you to do it, or if that means I got to fuck you to do it, or if that means I got to join with you to do it, right? Because sometimes it's positive. It's just that there isn't a unified thought process among what we're building. And I'll be the first to say, like, I haven't done enough study of other civilizations that have, that continue to thrive, whether it be, the Jews, or, there's Muslim, like there's groups that are splintered but still have a shared base, right?
Oh man, New York, that shit blew my mind. My homegirl lived in Brooklyn, and she lived in a neighborhood with the Hasidic Jews, and I just decided when I was in New York last to just walk back to my hotel, which was in Lower Manhattan. So I walked through the neighborhood, and I'm talking about blocks and blocks and blocks, and they had their own schools, their own police departments, their own school buses, own ambulances and everything. And I'm just like, and everybody's dressed the same, and everybody looked the same. And I'm like, we have this same elements in our community. If you go to California, you'll see just as many dudes with red and blue rags, but we don't own any of the property in these places.
But I have a theory for why this is, though.
Why is that?
We don't have a shared spiritual base.
Very good point.
At the end of the day, no matter what kind of Jew you are, they all answer to the same person.
Right. That's very true.
And there's a code.
Yeah, that you have to follow, and without question.
So whether you are Orthodox, Hasidic, you just show up for the Sabbath, like you just put on your yarmulke when you go see your grandparents, there's still a code, and that code is respected, and it's shared, and it's taught.
Right.
So from young, there's it's attached to something that's greater than everybody.
It's reverse for us. Like it's like when we see the police lights behind us, even when we're not doing anything, it's like indoctrinated in us to like freeze up and like, oh shit, are they coming for me? And I hate that I do that. I truly do, because I don't even be doing nothing wrong now, you know what I mean? But it's just indoctrinated into me to just feel like, oh shit, because there is no win in that situation. If somebody run up on me in the streets under normal circumstances, I can defend myself and I can come out on top of that situation. There is no coming out on top of a situation with the police, because even if you get out and whoop his ass, they're coming 100 deep to get back, and you're going to lose. So it's like, it's if we can find something
they
like
have
what
a shared
you just
base.
said. Yeah, exactly.
But the police have that
shared base.
Someone just asked, like, can we have that without religion? Absolutely.
Yes.
These white supremacists have that without religion.
Yes.
It's a shared bottom line that serves as the thesis by which they live on.
Right.
So if Black people if there was some decided thesis, like the reason why the civil rights movement was even somewhat successful, in my opinion, is because for the most part, most people got on the same page of, well.
Right. We had a unified struggle that we were fighting for.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And let me ask you this question. I want to get your opinion on this. Do you think that segregation was, desegregation rather, do you think that it was a benefit or a detriment to us as a whole?
It's a very nuanced question, as with anything in this fucking country. I think that there were positives and there were negatives. I think I was saying earlier on this live that as long as we were living on white man's land, segregation was never going to be wholly positive, because at the end of the day, they can fuck shit whenever they're ready. I.e., Oklahoma.
Yeah,
like
Tulsa,
Black Wall
right.
Street. You know what I'm saying? Like Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Philadelphia, and a number of other places. We can build these flourishing communities with nothing, but they still have the ability to come and mull it over. So I think that the positive part of segregation was that in our inability to integrate in these other spaces, we made our own standards of greatness, and we had our own, and our dollar stayed in our community, and we were, for what it's worth, forced to rely on each other. So by nature of simply just not having access, we created our own process. Once desegregation happened, I think the biggest thing that I look at the negative desegregation is it somehow made white right. It made being able to have access to whiteness as the highest level of success. And that's like white jobs, white people, like white women, like white white skin, right? There was a lot of passing going on. Like all of that shit is at its root about like the brainwashing working to make us hate ourselves. Because what really should have happened when desegregation took place was we should have still stayed in our community, but just reap the benefits of separate being equal. Right. I mean, that's what, and that's what Jews have done. Jews are like, we're gonna take all the resources
be over here, right,
and we're gonna funnel it into our community and make this tribe continue to work amongst itself. And but I don't want to look at us on. I'm not looking down on our ancestors with disdain. The system, the teaching was just effective.
Right. I mean, I look at it and I think back. I did like this thing on Reconstruction when I was in school, the Reconstruction era, and just how much Black people were able to accomplish in the positions we were able to hold during Reconstruction, and all the things that we were able to do during Reconstruction, and how that was, how the movies and everything that was put out, basically the propaganda that was put out to make Black people. I can't think of the name of the movie right now, but it's a classic movie, probably the most racist movie ever made, the black and white movie where they had Black people in the Congress with their feet. Brain fog, we both having one.
Come on,
Birth of a Nation.
Birth of a
Nation. There we go. And if you watch that movie now, the propaganda that's being shown in that movie hasn't changed at all, because right after Ahmaud Arbery situation came, then you start seeing all of these videos come out of him getting arrested for shit and him getting, antagonized by the police for things. And it's the same method that's being used now as it was then. So you could just see that their methods haven't changed. So if their methods haven't changed, then all we have to do is adjust and be able to make ourselves utilize the power that we have to null and void that shit. But it's so hard because, niggas, man, we
that's really
it's tough, man. Niggas is just, I love niggas. I'm a nigga. I'd say it proudly, but it's just, shit. You know what I mean?
It works.
It's tough.
It takes it really is we have a very nihilistic existence. It's just a lot of like hatred and self-hatred, and I can't say it enough, like the shit worked. Like the Willie Lynch syndrome, like all that shit has been wildly effective. But
right, I agree. And I believe
like we just talk and we not doing. But I don't agree with that, because I think if we're gonna look at like the trends in history, right? Like we're in a time right now where we're building up to there's gonna be another revolution. Like that's gonna happen. And in order for that to happen, it starts with a lot of talking. It starts with ideology. It starts with philosophy. starts with reimagining identity, and all of that starts with first talking. And to be honest, even talking becomes revolution for a lot of people, because a lot of folks don't think we can talk about these things publicly. They don't feel like
Right.
we
It used
can
to be
have.
illegal for us to do this, like for us to stand and build and
Hell yeah.
talk to each other. It used to be
And people
illegal.
are
Like,
still even on here saying, like, do you think talking is going to ruin your career? So like, there's still like this mindset of like, you can't say too much or else. So we have to start the talking.
yeah, I agree.
We
I
have to.
mean, I just think
That's why
that
I be on all that.
yeah, I mean, hey, shit. At some point, you got to realize that the change that you people always, I forget who it was that said the quote, live the change that you hope to see. But me coming from, I'm from DC public schools the whole way through, one of the worst schooling systems. Father murdered. Most of my male influences was in the street. My mother didn't graduate from high school. I got every excuse to use to be, to blame somebody else. But the reality is, responsibility is one of the biggest things that we lack. Like, especially for black men, niggas just don't want to accept the responsibility of being a man. And we have a skewed misconception of what it means to be a man. Huh?
That's what I was going. So can you speak to that?
Yes, to me, well, this is, to mind you, in my opinion, a lot of the things that we assume makes you a man is bullshit. Like being tough and being a gangster and all that shit. That doesn't make you a man. Like, not subscribing to youthful ignorance makes you a man. Accepting responsibility makes you a man. You know what I mean? Taking care of your people and being able to stand firm on what you believe in, no matter what it may be, that makes you a man. But manhood is it's like it's attached to age, but there are a lot of guys who are old but still haven't reached manhood yet because they haven't been able to accept the responsibility of what it takes to be a man. The reality is, don't nobody give a fuck about being, if you a man, nobody give a fuck about you. And you got to be willing to, especially a black man. The only ones that really care about us is y'all, for real. Do you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, you got to accept the fact that when you're a black man out here, it's going to come you're going to have to do a lot of things without any reward. You're not going to get any rewards. You're not going to get any pats on the back, but you got to accept that. And a lot of us have been babied and protected from the realities of things so much that our manhood has been sheltered and has been watered down. So by the time you become a man, you're no use to your community because you done already fucked your name up. You ain't got no credit. You're a felon. You can't go do nothing when you come home. So it's like we just get so lost in what manhood is because a lot of the men that have come from our communities have been stripped away from. Like, I personally think crack cocaine killed what was left of the black community because it got us both ways. Either you were selling it, you were smoking it, or you was in the communities that it was being sold and smoked in. And I just know that how it affected me growing up in DC in the 90s. I saw how it affected my community. I saw how it affected my mind. If it wasn't for my uncle getting murdered in 2002, I probably wouldn't have accepted being a man when I did, because if him being murdered in the way that he did let me know the realities of what it was for me, because he was 100 times tougher than I ever could be. But for him to go out the way he did, I was like, oh shit, this nigga's 33 years old and got murdered on the streets doing the same things he was doing when he was 17. And for what? You know what I mean? For what? For what reason? What came from that but a whole bunch of pain and a whole bunch of nothingness? And so many of us go through that. And then the fucked up part is, if we don't accept being a man, if we do make it out, you can still end up with a knee on your neck and going out like that. So you gotta accept the responsibilities that come with being a man and be willing to die about whatever it is you believe in. And until we get a unified front for black men that are willing to die about whatever it is we say we want to do, then we lost out here, in my opinion.
I think there's one missing part to that equation. Feelings.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, I don't know nobody that's really willing to die for something they don't have strong feelings about. Like niggas got stronger feelings about money than about themselves.
Yeah, because that's what we attach our self-worth to, is having something, because of what comes with having money.
I see niggas say like, yeah, like, I gotta go sit in I may have to go sit down in the feds for 35, but I made a meal. And I'm like, but you don't even get to spend the meal. Your family doesn't get to spend the meal. So what was the point of the meal? But I made it though. I made
Right.
that. But you see
Right.
that they tricked you. They tricked you into thinking that making their money made you.
Right.
And it does, because now you get to go sit in their motherfucking jail. And
For
now you're
years.
making cents a day for them to floss in San Tropez.
Right. And the crazy thing is my auntie, God rest her soul, moved into a house in uptown DC. I think it was 1989. The house was like probably about $56,000, 3-level, like brownstone style houses that they have in Northwest DC. I went home last year and went to my old neighborhood just to walk through or whatever. And then there was some white people, because mind you, the whole side of town that I come from has been gentrified all the way. So
wow.
I had the lady happen to be outside, and I asked her, I was like, I used to live in this house. I, grew up in this house. How much did this house sell for? And she was, oh, we got it for 1.9. I was like, God damn. And all this money that came through my house out the streets, nobody thought to take any of that and buy none of this property. We like, the mentality is fucked up, man. And I come from
when I was talking about feelings, I just think a lot of brothers just, the trauma that so many folks are experiencing is preventing them from being able to deal with their feelings. And so that ends up causing a myriad of behaviors that get in the way of actually being able to, quote unquote, be a man in the way that you're talking about. Because if you can't get in touch with yourself in that way, then how are you going to truly be able to overcome a patriarchal system that has told you from day one, no, how a man is? Like, no, like, it takes a certain level of courage, of gumption, like, to be able to, like, as an individual say, I think there's a different way, and like, that to me is like, as a Black woman loves Black men, like, that's the biggest thing for me, is like wanting to see brothers realize that, like, the top they're buying in is the same system of the oppression that's trying to take them out. The same
and I think
thing.
I'm gonna tell you why I think that is because that's all we have. All we have is the only thing that it can't be taken away from us is our masculinity, is our manhood. Like, kind of like that saying, your balls and your word. That's all we have. That's all we have to stand on. A lot of the guys that come from the communities that I grew up in, for a long time, I thought the only thing you could be was tough, or not be a sucker, or not express your feelings, like you said. Because if you express feelings, that means you are succumbing to the pressures of the world. You're a weak nigga. You a sucker. You know what I mean? And if we lose that, then we really have been stripped of everything, because it's nothing else that we have. Like, that shit, I can say now that it broke my heart. It breaks my heart every time I go home to DC. And I'm from uptown, 14th and U Street, and all these places where I used to play when I was a little boy, and to see white people walking dogs I've never seen before, and these apartment buildings that they knock down the projects and build up, and now it's $3,000, $4,000 a month for a studio apartment, and none of us are there. Like, that hurts me. But the reality is, how do you even express that without seeming like, oh man, you bitch ass nigga, you fuck is you worry about that shit for? We just don't have no outlet. There is no place for us as Black men that I know of, at least, to where we can express ourselves and get it out, and then go back and face the world without that stress and strain on us. There's nowhere to release it, because if you release it, that means you letting go of the one thing that we have that can't be taken away from us, and that's our manhood. Because our manhood is all that we really have to stand on in a lot of cases. Like, a lot of dudes, like you said, that'll make that $1 million and go sit down for 35 years. The reason why they'll do that is because I'm tough. I'm a man. I can go sit down for 35 years and not cry, because I got that to stand on. I have that to be able. I have my manhood to be able to build up, my people that's out in the streets. My son that might never ever see me again, I can pass this on to him. I can pass my masculinity down to him. Your daddy stood tall. I stood tall in the situation. I ain't telling nobody. And that's the code, and that's the way it's supposed to be. But at the end of the day, that's all he has to pass down. My father didn't have a headstone on his grave. And that means that whatever had happened up into his life, he hadn't garnered enough monetary assets to be able to put a marker down to let the world know he existed, nor did anyone around him have enough capital to be able to do it. So all he passed down was me. And if I wasn't smart enough to be able to maneuver around the chaos that we got to deal with, then that's all I would have. Like, shit, I got to turn up because my nigga was, you know, somebody killed my father. Now I'm walking the earth, so I got to be tough. And I had that mentality for a long time, but then I realized that the reality is I shouldn't go out like a patch of grass. There's so many of us that go out as patches of grass, and that's all we leave is the grass that our bodies is buried in. We don't leave anything here for our people to be able to grab onto and say, my father did this. He left this for me. He put this on earth so I wouldn't have to go through the same struggles that he went through and wouldn't have to conceal those same feelings that he went through. We don't have that, man. It's tough out here. It's tough out here.
Change. We have to, so much of the stuff that simply just takes place within the Black community and the way we react to things is going to come down to us changing our definition of things and changing the things that we respond to, changing the way that the things that we reward. And, you know, there's a lot of women in here who are mothers and there's fathers in here. And it's like, you know, even just like the affection that we show our children, the way we speak to our children, the way that we deal with their, you know, the way that we deal with their fears and their frustrations and their emotions. We use such violent language on such a regular basis that makes you afraid to feel. If you cry and says quit fucking crying, you have now associated crying with a word that is also just very violent. So, like, you don't feel safe crying, and you gonna need to cry.
Right, and that's the way I was raised. You know, I love my mother to death, and that's my nigga now. But when I was young, she was like, I can't teach you how to be no, she used to say this to me all the time, man, I can't teach you how to be no man, but you damn sure ain't gonna be no bitch. Like, that's what she would say to me. And I'm thankful for it.
I was raised in the same bullshit, because that's the thing. We're all in the same fuck shit.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely
you know
right.
What I'm saying? And like our mom.
And I can't say that she's wrong because, and I can say this publicly now, that's the reason why I have kind of like I've always had a fear of having a son, because I only know how to implement the things that I know how to do from a certain perspective. I don't have the reference point of my father because he was dead, and all of my uncles was tough guys, and they gave me lessons directly. And my mother was like, nigga.
But Chico, that's not true.
I mean, I know
reference points.
I know now
reference points of what not to do.
Right, but how to implement those though, kind of, it's like it's.
But
scary
that's
to me.
that's where the communing has to happen. Like, you're not. I guess what I'm saying is, like, we have to create spaces where those conversations happen. Like, we have to make an earnest effort to, like, talk to each other and ask those questions. A lot of times we don't, and a lot of times we don't even understand that, like, if you did ask that question, someone would be completely willing to have an answer and, like, talk it out. But it's the shame of not knowing that a lot of times stops us from having that conversation, or the not shame, but more so, like, I feel like just the embarrassment or the consternation of feeling like I should know. None of us fucking know. None of us, we don't know. Like, I'm literally in therapy right now having all these guys breakthroughs because I'm realizing, like, oh, like, there's just certain shit I just didn't know. None of us know how to be in a fucking relationship. Like, how? From what example? Where?
Yeah.
To define that, and, like, that takes talking through it. Like, I see people in here, like, asking, like, what is y'all call to action? The call to action is, we're literally having a conversation. A black man and are having a conversation about a myriad topic that we're either going to agree or disagree on, but we're doing it in a respectful fashion. We're learning perspectives from each other. That's the call to action. This is Black love. That's what.
Right. Yeah. And I'm with it. Like, I love this type of shit because, you know, it's setting an example that we can communicate with each other without beefing. You know what I mean? Because a lot of what we see and a lot of the examples that we see of ourselves, we always at each other's throat about nonsense. But, you know, I just think that at this point, for all of the shit that's going on, and mind you, that's the backdrop of a world pandemic that's going on. That is a whole nother fucking You know what I'm saying?
We almost
Like,
forgot about that shit.
yeah, I know. That lets you know how crazy the world is. Like, we went from, like, I was just telling somebody the other day, in February, if you walked into a store with a mask and gloves on, you were a criminal. Now, if you don't have on mask and gloves, you're a criminal. So the world has shifted that quickly in a couple of months. But all of the things that have been going on in the old world are still happening in front of us, but outside is completely different. Like, we know we are live performers. I don't even want to think about how much money I mean, it's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? It hurt, dog, man. See, that's another thing we got to talk about. We got to get to the point where we start to express that shit. Because after a while, it's going to be like, man, fuck. Like, what's going on, G?
I've been just like, I can't.
It's nasty. It's nasty, man. And it's, you know, the best thing for me in this time that I've gotten out of the quarantine or just the world being shut down is that I've learned how to be a better father to my daughter, because she takes the biggest L in regards to me always being on the road and being gone. And I try to compensate for it with the things that I do for her, but there's nothing like that, giving her that reference point that I was just talking about, why she laughs at the things she laughs at or why she thinks the way she thinks. Like, I take pride in being able to give her those examples because I never had them. But at the same time, I just look at the world the way that it was, and the way that we subscribe to so much, thinking that that's what you were supposed to do, just to have it taken away from you like that. So it's like, well, am I supposed to still subscribe to the same things whenever it goes back to whatever it's going to be, or do I change my whole mentality about what I'm supposed to dedicate my energy and my time to out here?
You're supposed to change your whole mentality.
But that's the thing. How? How do you change? Like, that's another question that I think a lot of people are going to need to be answered, because, like, you spent your whole life up until February 2020 thinking that this is the way to do things to be able to better your existence. And then March came and whoop, everything's out of there. So when you go back, whenever it goes open, because there's no such thing as going back to what it was then. So whenever it does open back up, the restructuring of the mind has to be, you have to be very, very keen in doing so. But how can we do it when everything that we're seeing out here is the same as it always has been in regards to the fucked up aspects of the world? Like, how do you break that cycle? How do you make yourself think differently when everything around you is the same in a negative aspect?
I think part of it is changing your practices. Like, I know a lot of us who be on the road and, you know, who are hardworking, like, that kind of becomes our spirituality. Like, that becomes our mantra. Like, just, I gotta keep moving. I gotta keep doing what I gotta do. Like, that also becomes the foundation of our, right? Like, I am a performer. I am working. I am providing.
I made it. You know what I mean? Right.
This is why I'm here in the world. And I think what ends up shifting is what you're anchored to. And it doesn't mean that when the shit comes back that you don't go back to performing, you don't go back to providing, and you don't
you have to.
But what that's anchored to is the part that has to shift right now. And, you know, what is your ambition? What it means to the end of your, what is your, like, means to an end? Like, is it for celebrity? Is it for getting a show? I know so many people that are doing everything they're doing just so they can get their own show. That was it, to get your own show. Well, newsflash, that's empty. That's an empty goal.
Right.
Because
mine was
happening,
always different. Like,
what ends up happening is you end up having to reassign your goals and ambitions to values.
Right.
And
I agree.
Values can exist in many different things. So getting a show, I'm not saying that can't be a desire. I'm not saying that can't be a wish, but that can't be the driving force.
The end all be all. Right. I never really had those. I think that helps me a little bit too, Amanda, because I never really had the same goals and aspirations in this industry as most people. Because, like I said, my motivation came from a different place. I was just trying not to be a patch of grass. Like, I done beat the game already from, you know, my existence and where I come from.
I'm not going to let you be a
I'm not going out like that. Like I already beat the game, but as far as, you know, what to aspire to do for most people. Now I'm not really speaking for my own self because, you know, I'm if I don't know, I'm willing to say that I don't know. So I'm very easy. I'm not that my ego don't work like I know everything. I'm very, very teachable. But for most people, I just think that for people who haven't established what they want to do with themselves, it's going to be so hard for them to be able to go back out into a world where everything is shifted and they don't have any idealism of what it is they're supposed to be striving to do anymore. I think that's going to cause a lot of people to be just lost out here whenever shit do go back out to the right way, because everything that you subscribe to has changed. I was having a conversation the other day and just thinking about how many hands we've shaken in the past 3-4 years, how many pictures and how many meet and greets and all of those things that can't be the same the way the world has shifted now, where sneezing a cough is weapons. Now you can go to jail for that shit now. Like you literally can go to jail for coughing on a motherfucker.
Right.
So how do you find the same for a lot of people? How are they going to get that same just validation that they've been getting from those type of things? And I've been trying to think of ways to just explain to people, because luckily for me, I've never subscribed to needing any of that.
Right.
But for those who do, it's going to be tough because you're not going to be able to get it the same way anymore. It's impossible to be able to get it the same way, at least not for the foreseeable future.
I mean, with Smart Funny and Black, we did a virtual show and we were able to do like meet and greet. We were able to provide like a networking space where people could literally like have like live moments like this with random people in the venue.
Right. It's crazy.
You know? No, you're right. It's trippy. Like it's trippy in the mug, but we adapt.
Right, because I think about how fun the
we
Smart
do
Funny and
find a way.
Black shows we did was. Them shits was fucking fun. Like just seeing the energy of the people and being able to feel the way that people react to the things that we are able to bring to the world. It's like how do you shift that? How do you get to a point where now because people always say when it goes back to normal, but I think it's just optimism that people are holding on to, but there's just a greater chance that it never does than it will. You know what I mean? It's just a great of a chance that you'll never be able to be in an arena with thousands of people than it is that you will be able to again, because there is no real answer. There's no outcome that we have to be able to, there's no end to it. We don't have any end goal. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's just a weird time, Amanda Seals. It's a weird ass time.
It's a weird time. It's a dark time. I try and find the positives. I mean, I'm very fortunate that I'm a very adaptable person. Like I'm good at a pivot. So we doing this now? All right.
And I'm looking at some of the comments, man. See, this is what I mean about niggas. Somebody just commented, y'all talking about killing white people or nah. Get your listen, man. People, niggas that
I'm talking
want
about
attention.
white supremacy. I'm always talking about that.
Of course. But the thing about it is people just think that whatever they saw is the thing to talk about. Like,
but people are
first of
also
all, people don't even understand what that means. I come from an environment where killing was abundant.
Right.
Like, stop playing. You don't have the stomach to even get remotely close to doing that. Huh?
Someone said the Minnesota police precinct is on fire.
Oh, they burned a couple of them down.
Good.
Yeah, they burned a couple of those down. They going up in Minnesota, and it's a lot of black people in Minnesota. We learned that on the 85 South. When we did Minnesota, we was like, whoa, where the fuck
it's
y'all
not
come from?
It's not Bobby's World doing shit.
Oh no. Minnesota is full of black people. And it's like, and it makes you think it gotta be a little bit more of us than they let know. Carlos say that all the time. There's more niggas than they telling us out here. Because everywhere
they
you go.
They talk about 8%. I'm like, not the way we fucking.
Raw too. Like, you know what I mean? We like to feel it. You right. Straight through. We
I
like to
said that.
feel
I
it.
said that on the goddamn reel. They were like, Amanda, are you gonna have kids? I'm like, you know what? I'm so tired of condoms. So
Yeah, just
the
after
possibility
a
turn.
certain age, you get sick of that shit. It's like, look, I do not want to put this filter on my dick, ma'am. Please. I'm
So I
tired of this
just like, I'm
filter.
only fucking if you my man because I really don't want to be bothered with you.
Right.
I
We had to
I'm
get
done.
fucking
My
tired of
pussy is like,
practicing.
we're good. We're good. My pussy is like, we'll just we'd rather not if we can.
Yeah,
We'd
I
rather
feel
not
you.
if we can.
If we can, I
But
feel you.
I have an episode of my podcast, Small Doses, Side Effects of Fatherhood, and our band leader from Smart Funny and Black, DW, he was the host. And I think you would actually benefit from listening to it.
Okay.
Because he just I just didn't anticipate like where he was coming. Like it was a really dope episode that I learned so much about just fatherhood, and parenting. And I think that we just have to share notes. We just have to compare notes. That's really what it is. It's really, honestly, Chico, it's not and to everyone listening, it's not really that much more, um, that much more complicated than we have to start sharing notes about like everything. Like my mom always tells me, like, your generation is different because y'all actually talk. And she always says that, like, my mom was born in 47. She always says that her generation, they never talked about things that were wrong. Never. So there was a whole lot of parents that raised us without any insight from anybody else.
Right. Without any knowledge base on how to do it. Because my mother definitely didn't have her father. And you know what I mean? And my family is very different. They was off the chain. And so I'm blessed. And now it's crazy because now my mother is able to do all of the things that she didn't do with me with my daughter. And that's beautiful because now she feels like all of the things that she went through with me worked. So now she can be free and just be all loving and not have that hardness that she had with me, because I started working when I was 9 years old. My mother told me, look, I'm responsible for what you need. I can give a fuck about what you want. What you want is on you. So I've been getting what I want on my own very long. But now my daughter, she doesn't know the lady that raised me. And I'm happy about that. A lot of people be like, who is that lady? I'm like, I'm glad that she got to let that part of her out, because that was always in her. But with me, man, my little brother, and my little brother was a little easier because I was already outside. But
already
you know what
cracked.
I mean?
Yeah.
Like now she's able to do those things. But now with me being a father to a little girl, especially, it's like I have a responsibility to make sure. Like my biggest thing with my daughter is teaching her what she doesn't, making sure she knows what she doesn't want. Because what you want, you really don't have to put any effort into that. Things you like can come and go as often as they want to. But the things you don't like are the things that you hate in your life. Shit that you don't fuck with, you want to deal with that as least as possible. And I feel like teaching her how to be as forward about her own emotions and being okay with being who she is without fear of criticism or ridicule is so important now, because she got a different world to grow up in than I did. Wasn't no social media.
Right.
I only knew what the girls looked like in my neighborhood and in the surrounding areas. And I didn't have nobody telling me that I was ugly or telling me that my shoes weren't cool or none of that shit, unless you said it to me in my face, and we were able to deal with that accordingly. Now we don't live in that type of world. So I think that one of the most important things to me as a father is making sure that she's accepting of who she is. My theory is, as long as you're not knowingly hurting yourself or anybody else, then you good. I don't give a fuck what she want to do. If she want to be a rodeo clown, I want her to be as confident as possible in that, because now she's growing up in a world where opinion drives so much more than it's ever driven before. And now you can give your opinion, as we can see in the comments, publicly and privately at the same time. You can say fuck Amanda Seals and Chico B with a not even a picture of you on the little circle.
Right.
Then I click on your profile, you have 0 pictures, following 0 people are following you, and you following 5,000 motherfuckers. And then it's like, we don't even know if these are real people. This could be a computer system that's just set up to throw salt in the game. So it's like, how do you navigate that as a child? Because influence is everything to these kids. Like my daughter doesn't watch TV; she watches her phone on the TV. You know what I mean? And I had to show her all of these different things. Like that's the cool part of quarantine. My daughter didn't know who James Brown was, who Richard Pryor was, who Little Richard was. She didn't know who any of these people were. So we sat down in my basement and I just ran YouTube videos just to give her the reference points that nobody, that she wouldn't give a fuck about learning, because now TikTok is the shit. That's all she care about is doing this shit. So it's like, it's just a different time, man. Yeah, all that doing, that's important to kids. And I can't necessarily say it's wrong because, when I was young, when we were young, the shit that we wanted to subscribe to, I wanted to be on Guts, bad as a motherfucker.
Bad as a motherfucker.
I wanted to be on Guts so bad. Like, every time I watch it,
I know I could murder it. I know.
Legends of the Hidden Temple and all that shit.
I was watching Legends of the Hidden Temple. That's what I was watching.
Listen, they need to bring that back for like us. We need to work on getting that show back for grown people so we can just live our childhood dreams.
Actually, the same band leader, doing D-Dub, that's our band leader for the Clapbacks, just Smart Funny and Black. He was on Carmen Sandiego.
Word.
Yes.
Oh,
I had
man,
no
that
idea
nigga's a
this
legend.
was a fucking child genius.
For real.
He got into like Rutgers or some shit when he was like 9 or some crazy. I'm like, nigga, what?
Exactly.
And Smart Funny and Black, like ding, 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 ding.
Exactly. All that shit. I seen somebody put Double Dare in there. Man, what? That's what I
physical challenge.
Right. Get slimed and shit. I wanted to be on there. So I know what it means to be a child and to subscribe to the things that are, important to you. But in that, I just want to make sure that I teach her that no matter what, you are you and be happy with you.
Self-esteem.
You know what I mean? It's very important, especially for women, man. Especially for women, especially for Black women. It's very important to learn to love yourself first. If you waiting on a nigga or society to give you your validation, ooh, it's gonna be ugly out here.
But it's deeper than that, because you can love yourself and not realize parts of you are attached to other shit that when they don't happen fucks with your love for yourself. And you're like, wait, what? Like, I think it's dope that you get to be with your daughter because abandonment issues that she was developing, you are now quelling.
Yeah.
And they happen right under your nose.
Oh, I know. Trust me. I deal with a lot of women who have them. So I get it. You know what I mean?
You said you loved women who had them?
I said, I know. I deal with a bunch of women who have them abandonment issues. Like, it's important to get.
All of us have it. That's the trippy part. It shows up in men different, but it's still all the insecure men. That's what that is. It's just a bit.
Oh, well. You think so?
I'm fucking them. Like,
oh, okay. Well,
I fucked enough. Where
in my opinion, the insecurities with men come from not being able to manage your ego and being baby too long. Like, I think I know that
the men that I've seen it in, it's been about them not feeling secure because they were never made to they were never made to have an independent self, and they measure themselves against someone like always being there. And so it's the same thing, I guess, what you're saying. Like the abandonment that I'm talking about is like they're used to someone babying them all the fucking time. So if you're
all the time, right?
If you're
I'm lucky in that
they
regard.
feel abandoned, and that's when the insecurity comes.
I'm lucky in that regard because my mama was like, "Get the fuck out my face, boy. Go do something with yourself."
Can't you just go zoo your ass out of here?
Nah, she was like, "Get the fuck on somewhere, boy. I ain't got time to be laying up all up under me. You ain't my man. Get your ass outside and do something." And that helped me now because it created a self-efficiency that keeps you from being, huh?
Yeah, but can you cuddle?
Yeah. I mean, I learned that over time, though. It was like, I used to think that, I learned that over time. It wasn't just some shit I knew off the break. Hell no. I had to fuck it up a couple times, but I jumped off the porch early, though. So, I thought I was a grown man at like 13.
You're going to have to teach me how to.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I thought I was a grown man early. So I got a lot of my lessons early in the game. So by the time I became a grown man, I was already good. But as
No,
far as intimacy, I never had
that's the
intimacy
word.
issues. I never had intimacy issues because even though my mother was the way she was, I grew up in a house with a bunch of women. And what I didn't get from my mom, because she had to work all the time, my aunties gave me. And, you know, my older I had cousins who was like my aunts because they grew up with my mother. So I don't have any intimacy. I never had intimacy issues, but what I will say is I always looked at, like, you know, being soft as a weakness, like showing softness. Like,
what do you consider being soft?
Now it's different, but back then would be like kissing a girl in front of your homeboys, that type of shit. You know what I mean? Showing affection in front of your friends. And now, I mean, I'm beyond past that now as a grown man, but back then it was like, we ain't do that shit. Like, what y'all, you in love? Oh, in love ass nigga, get your in love ass in the house, boy.
Mind you, they hating.
I mean, yeah, you know that now, but back then,
mind
it was
you,
like,
they
damn,
wish.
am I in love?
They wish.
Am I in love? I don't know. Do I really love this motherfucker? Now I'm cool. I love all my bitches, but it's like back then I was confused, boy. But you know, you learn those lessons, and that's why black men are important. We need niggas to be in the community. Like, one of the things that I've been working on since I've been able to get to a point of success in my career is implementing a program to curb recidivism, because DC has a big recidivism rate. And for people who don't know what that is that means niggas getting out of jail, going right back to jail. So I feel like if I can put programs in place in our communities that employ these people that come from these communities that made a mistake, and, you know, be able to put them back into the communities and pay them a real livable wage, I think that our young men will flock to those guys, because that's what we look up to anyway. We want to be like them niggas anyway. So if we can put them in a position to be able to employ them with a livable, make them make money and not have to rely back on the same shit that got them locked up before, I think that's a very, very important program that needs to be implemented. I think that needs to be something that's discussed in the next presidential election. Like, what are you going to do to keep niggas out of jail, to get us out of jail and keep us out of jail? Like, what are you going to do? Because if you're not going to do nothing to keep us out of jail, then we lost even more than we already are.
The problem is they need us in jail to be a workforce.
So that's tough. Yeah, that's tough. That's the tough part right there. But that's another
like
part.
Like the prison system is literally the workforce.
Oh, I know. Yeah, you know, license plates all the way down the sheets, baby. We getting it done. 10 cents an hour.
They're making Victoria's Secret panties, all that shit. You get $2 and nothing, and by the time, and then, you know, don't get me started on probation.
Nigga, but like what Juicy J said, probation and parole is a trap for niggas. He been said it. You know what I mean? It is what it is, man. But this, you know what, man? This has been beautiful. I didn't know that I was gonna have this dope conversation tonight, sitting in my garage, trying to be a good person, not smoking in the house around my child. And I'd have been able to sit in the garage and have a beautiful conversation, man. You are dope as fuck.
Ditto. I love you.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
man, for real, love you, Amanda. I'm about to go in here and wash my hair. Peace.
That was a good one, y'all. That was a good one. I hope y'all enjoyed that as much as I did. You know, these are dark times, stressful times, etc. But I always say, like, we got to carry pockets of joy. Chico Bean is a pocket of joy. That is a fact. So shout out to Chico, Carlos, and DC 85 South. And shout out to y'all for always showing love. I'm signing off. Stay safe, stay strong, stay real. And remember, we are each other's business. When we look out for each other, we lift each other up. Night, y'all.